All right, Rosh Chodesh Sameach. All right, awesome. So welcome to our Rosh Chodesh service for the month of Adar. And we're so excited to be able to be here, continuing through the cycle of counting time leading towards Passover. Oh man, it's just right around the corner. All right, we got one more Rosh Chodesh and then we're there. All right, so for those of you that are new and are just joining us tonight, so what we do is we go through a short Rosh Chodesh service and then I bore you to tears with some talk. Okay, so whatever comes to my head, because I don't have anything prepared, as you guys all know usually. So anyway, so here we go. So this service is, like I said, it's only about 15 minutes or so. You can stand, hopefully most of you can stand through the whole thing. It's something we all do together. We're going to read off the screen. Those of you on live stream, we're going to have the things that we're reading right on the screen for you. And so if you'll all rise, we'll begin with the sounding of the silver trumpet. Amen, amen. All right, together, Psalm 51 and verse 15. Yahweh sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Yahweh, open my lips that my mouth declare your praise. May the expressions of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart find favor before you, Yahweh, my rock and my redeemer. Also in the day of your gladness, and in your appointed times, and in the beginnings of your months, you shall blow with the trumpets over your burnt offerings and over the sacrifices of your peace offerings, that they may be to you for a memorial before your Elohim. I am Yahweh, your Elohim. O Yahweh, your Elohim, and Elohim of our fathers, make this coming month one of good and blessing. Grant us long life, a life of peace, of good, of sustenance, and of vigor. A life marked by a reverence for you and a dread of sin. A life free from shame and reproach. A life of prosperity and honor. A life in which love of the living Torah and the fear of Elohim animates us. A life in which our heartfelt desires are fulfilled for good. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen. He who performed miracles for our fathers and liberated them from slavery to freedom, may he quickly liberate us and gather our exiles from the four corners of the earth, and let us say, Amen. The new moon of the month of Adar is today. May it prove to be good and fruitful for all 12 tribes of Israel. May the set-apart one, blessed be he, grant this Rosh Chodesh to us and to all his people. For life and peace, for gladness and joy, for deliverance and consolation, and let us say, Amen. Blessed, praised, glorified, honored, and exalted be the name of the King of Kings, the set-apart one, blessed be he, who is the first and the last, and beside him there is no Elohim. Extol him in the heavens. Yahweh is his name. Rejoice before his face. His name is honored beyond all blessing and praise. Blessed be his name, whose glorious kingdom is forever. Let the name of Yahweh be blessed forever and ever. Isaiah 66, verses 22 and 23. For as the new heavens and the new earth that I make stand before me, declares Yahweh, so your seed and your name shall stand. And it shall be that from Rosh Chodesh to Rosh Chodesh, and from Shabbat to Shabbat, all flesh shall come to worship before me, declares Yahweh. Amen. All right, Rosh Chodesh Sameach. All right, you may be seated. You may be seated. Okay, so some of this you're familiar with because we say it every month, every new moon, every Rosh Chodesh. So we'll begin with those things that you guys should be used to hearing, but I need to remind you. You know, in Peter's writings, Peter wrote in his letter, he said, there are things I know I need to remind you, even though you should already know them, but I feel it's my job to remind you anyway. And so I want to remind you that as we're marking time, one of the great opportunities that happens when we count and move the marking of time is that we can recognize that we've completed a cycle, which means we get to start a new one. And when we complete a cycle and start a new one, we get to look backward and see how much we grew, how much we progressed, how much we didn't progress, maybe we didn't grow. And so it inspires us either because of doing well and wanting to do more, or maybe not doing so well and wanting to fix that and do better. So we look back and we see, we examine. And then we look forward to starting afresh in this new month, in this new moon, like the turning of a page. And so we can be excited about what can we accomplish in this next month, in this next new moon. And so I want to encourage you also that all of you who are here, whose eyes are open and ears are open and hearts are ready to receive, whose bubble, as I call it, his bubble has been popped so that you can see out of the delusion of this world into the reality of the kingdom, all of you can make it to the kingdom from where you are right now. However, it's going to be in your hands. Christianity has lied to you. Made it sound like it's all in his hands. Well, no, it was his choice to pop your bubble when he did and call you when he did and choose you when he did. But now what you do with that is all on you. He's handed you an opportunity. You know, that's the way Moses lays it out, right? I've laid before you life and death. And he wants us to choose, and you shall choose life. And so we should renew our energy and our vigor, as we read in the blessings, as we go forward into this new moon. Now, this new moon is an interesting one because it's the last one before we start the new year for the Holy Day cycle, which starts with next new moon, which is Aviv. So we're literally 6 weeks away from Passover, right? We're a month away from Aviv and then 2 weeks to Passover. And so what are some of the things that we're supposed to do before Passover? Well, there's two things primarily. One is examine yourself. The other is get out the leaven, which you would find by examining yourself. Okay, because it takes looking for it to find it. And so I think probably getting a good 6-week start on this would be helpful. Because some of you are going to wait till the week before, the day before, and think, uh-oh, I need to examine myself or I need to get the leaven out. Now, as far as the physical leaven, yes, you don't do that until right before we start unleavened bread. Okay, some of you will finish that up before you leave to travel here or to travel wherever you're keeping the Passover. Others of you who live here may do it closer to that day because it says on the first day of unleavened bread, all leaven will cease from being in your dwellings. That doesn't mean that like literally on that day. You can get it done and should get it done before that. But as we are going forward in the next 6 weeks, we should be examining ourselves. So what are you looking for? Well, of course, you're going to be looking for things like leaven, sin. Leaven, we should also know from listening to the Get Out the Leaven teachings, is what? Hypocrisy. Okay? Beware the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees, which is hypocrisy. All right, so we need to look for that hypocrisy. So hypocrisy being, I'll give you a simple definition. I'm claiming to be, but I'm not. So what are you claiming to be? A child of the living Elohim. But do you walk like one? Do you act like one? Do you think like one? That's what you're examining. I mean, we can reword it into simply, I'm examining to see how much do I look like Yeshua. And wherever I don't look like Yeshua is areas I need to work on. We're told to behave like him. We're told, let this mind be in you in Philippians 2:5. So we're told to think like him and respond to the Father's voice like he did, and he does, in that submissive way to the vertical structure. And so I want us to examine ourselves. So that's all the normal stuff that people think of. I'm going to change it up a little bit here. I'm not sure what that's going to be until it comes out of my mouth, but I'm going to change it up a little bit here. We're going to want to look at things from the idea of what comes next, because they didn't know, right? When they were first told about this, Exodus 12, this is going to be the beginning of your months, and then on this date and this, they hadn't done it ever before. We know what it's all about. We've not only read about it, we've maybe seen it, in video form, like in movie depictions of it. We've actually lived it ourselves and walked through this cycle before. Most of us, some of you, it's going to be your first one. But even if it's your first one, you kind of know the whole point, right? Passover, we know what happened with the Exodus, and we know we're also looking forward to a greater Exodus. And we know that there was a prepping. They were supposed to be girded, staff in hand, sandals on, ready to go. And they were going where? Well, they were going to Sinai first, to covenant, and then they were going to the land. Okay? Now, they got a little diverted on the way to the land. They didn't get diverted on the way to Sinai. Notice that Abram opened up the sea and did all kinds of other, he made sure they got to Sinai. Okay? But once they covenanted, now it was all in their decisions that made a difference, right? Because their choices really had nothing to do with getting them to the covenant place. Notice that. That's very important. Your choices had nothing to do with when he called you, when he popped your bubble, what you were doing at that time. You didn't earn it. You didn't deserve it. We'll call that, on a level of understanding like a salvation thing, something that you don't earn. Because salvation is something that was freely given. However, there was a reward being offered to them and to you. The metaphor for that reward is the land. The reality is the kingdom. That they had to earn. And he was going to allow them to go through, or cause them to go through, trials and challenges to see whether or not they were actually prepared to go in. And they were not ready the first time. I'm sure we all can see that. When the spy spied out the land and came back with an evil report, they were not ready. They weren't ready emotionally. They weren't ready in their maturity. They just weren't ready to go through this process. And then we know that they were headed from that point into the land, and then in the land to live out what they had been taught, to live it out. So the hard part is not living it out when you're in the land. The hard part is going from Egypt to the land. Okay? And so I want you to examine yourself. I want you to examine yourself by doing a little checkup on your physical, emotional, psycho-emotional condition. So why didn't you say spiritual? Because it's not a spiritual problem you're having. I know everybody wants to make everything a spiritual problem. I mean, everything is spiritual, I guess, in some way or another. But your problem is not a spiritual problem. You're here because you already have contact with and interaction with and at least a certain amount of the Spirit. Or you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be understanding what he teaches in the Scriptures the way you understand it now. You wouldn't know, you know how different it is than when you used to look at it. And so you know you have that. That's not the problem. The problem is, what are you going to do? That's the on you part. Do you have the strength physically to walk this out? Because maybe you don't take care of yourself. Maybe you don't do what you need to do to have what strength. And strength doesn't mean that you're bench pressing 500 pounds. I mean, strength simply means, do you have the energy to do the things that you need to do? And I know some of you, it's amazing. Some of you think that you don't. And I've watched people with walkers and canes and wheelchairs come and do work that some of you wouldn't even try to do, because they're going to find a way to do something. They have the energy, even if they don't have the physical capacity to do certain things. But do you have that vigor, which is a zest in life, to at least do whatever you can do? Because it's going to, if you were told this, they weren't really told this very clearly when they left Egypt, but if you were told this before going and you already knew where you're going, wow, you're going to have to pack your stuff and carry it all the way to Sinai and then carry it all the way to the land, deal with a whole bunch of challenges, people attacking you and people getting in your way and all kinds of other things. You're going to have to deal with all of your fears, all of your doubts, So when you examine yourself, you may want to ask yourself, how am I doing in dealing with my fear and my doubts? How am I doing in dealing with my stuff? Okay? Because the other conditioning that's critical that you need to have is that psycho-emotional part. I talked about the physical part, now the psycho-emotional part. Do you think, I know I've asked you this before, and nobody get offended. If you fit what I'm about to say, own it and fix it. But do you believe that there will be weak-minded, weak-willed people in the kingdom? Okay? Because it's not for the weak-willed and weak-minded. I didn't say stupid or uneducated. I said weak of mind, weak of will, determination, commitment. You can't overcome if you're weak-minded and weak-willed. And he knows, and you know, we've done the teaching to he who overcomes, that all those things it says in Revelation will be given to those who overcome. You're not overcoming if you're weak. If you're weak, you get overcome. And so some of you are going to have to figure out, I need to exercise a whole bunch of whatever I've got going on to become strong because I'm weak. And I'm telling you, I'm concerned about this. And the reason I'm concerned about it is because I interact with a lot of people every week. Not all who live here. I don't want you to think I'm only talking about you guys. Okay? Probably most of the people I talk to don't live here. Okay? They live further away. Some in other countries. The number one challenge that everybody is suffering from is being weak. I don't mean like being tough. I'm saying being weak. You don't have to be strong and in somebody's face to be strong. Strength is what brings discipline. Discipline is what? Doing what has to get done, even when you don't want to do it. In the face of challenge and adversity. It takes strength to have discipline. It takes strength. Look, if you're wanting to lose weight and somebody shows up with free donuts, it takes strength to not eat one. That's not a joke. That's not a joke. Every week at Oneg, somebody will walk around going, I made this wonderful whatever dessert cake thing, and would you like some? And I'm not usually strong enough to say no. Oh, but Rabbi, I don't want to hurt their feelings. Okay, do you think it's possible to walk out this life and do it right and never hurt anybody's feelings? No. Okay? And the reason is not because you're callous, cold, and harsh. It's because people are very rude and inconsiderate and have their feelings laying all over the place. It's easy to step on them. Go listen to the teaching little thing I did called something about the feelings bag, okay? Because you guys just leave them out there and you're like, oh, well, that person hurt my feelings. Well, they shouldn't have been out there to step on. Okay, but we do that. We just are, it's like normal for people to just, I wish there was a way to depict this so it would just look like everybody's like intestines were everywhere. Ew. Because that's what it's like when I have to deal with everybody with their feelings out there. That's how gross it is to me. I'm like, oh, come on. That's embarrassing. Pick that up and put it somewhere. Don't leave that out where I have to see it. That's rude. Look, everything in life, to get where you need to go, has to start with owning that you have your part of it, right? Your responsibility. That means owning all the things that you're good at and working on them and keep doing them. It also means all the things that you have weaknesses in to figure out a way to strengthen them. And none of this, by the way, has anything to do with where you were born, what your culture was, what your race is, what your gender is, what your education level is, or any of that stuff. This is something that's inside everybody. And some of you have a real problem with somebody like me. You know why? Because you're not used to, in this very weak world, dealing with a strong person. And so you'll call me things like, you're mean, you're harsh, you're this. I was like, no, I'm just strong. What does that mean by strong? I know what I know, I believe what I believe, and there's no compromising that. And so when people come to me and want me to change my mind on something and I go, no, they get all mad. Sorry. Most of the people of the world, most of you are used to, because you did this when you were a child and your children do this to you, you're manipulatable. Someone can push on you enough and they're going to get their way. They're going to get you to say yes. They're going to get you to change your mind. They're going to get you to allow them whatever. And you're going to go right into enabling and allowing and entitling and codependency. It takes strength to say no. You know what? I remember a very, very righteous, most humble among men, begging the Almighty to do something, and he said no. Right? Moshe said, "Can't I just go in?" Basically. And Yahweh said, not only did he say no, what did he say? He said, "We are not going to talk about this ever again." I heard my own father say that to me at least once or twice. Most of you heard your father say that too. Not only is it no, but I don't ever want to hear that again. We are not discussing this ever again. If we do discuss it again, no, it won't go well. And Yahweh does that to Moshe. He says, no. And not only no, but don't even bring it up ever again. We are not having that discussion. I will never change my mind. See, some of you have the problem, though, because you always change your mind. And then you end up lacking the integrity necessary for kingdom life. Because you have to be dependable. How can I count on you? How can Yahweh count on you if you can be moved and swayed? So you're examining yourself for these things. At the end of the millennium, there's an incredibly interesting and very bizarre in some ways event. Hasatan is released. Why is he released? To test, right, the final test. But what is the test really? He's looking for the weak ones. He's a roaring lion looking to see whom he can devour. He's looking for the weak. When a lion is out there looking for food and it sees a herd of something running by, wildebeest or whatever, it looks for the weak ones. Why would I want to chase down the strong ones and maybe not get it? I'm going to get the weak ones and I'm going to have no problem. So Hasatan is released to go after the weak ones. So the question is, yeah, Michael, you're blocking the camera there. Okay, that's fine. She's fine. Okay, so the question is, are you going to be available to Hasatan to devour? Is he devouring you now? You know, in the, what was the name of the teaching? Just developing the character of Yeshua. I talk about that that to be what we need to be, we have to be completely selfless, right? Because a selfless person cannot be offended. Because it's a self that gets offended. Because you say things like, I'm offended. So you can't just say offended. No, it's like, I'm offended. That's the part that's offended, the I. The I am is offended. Like your I am, not the I am, right? But if you're selfless, you can't be offended because there's no I to be offended. And so we have to grow out of that. And that takes a lot of strength. Because the emotions, when they rule, come out of weakness. I didn't say emotions were weakness. Don't hear what I didn't say. People are going to turn this into whatever they want to turn this into. Everybody, strong or weak, can express and should at times express their emotions. But when the emotions drive, without any guidance, without any governor to keep it in balance, that shows weakness. It's the strong that can have the maturity to have control over their emotions. So the emotions just don't drive them into a ditch or wreck relationships or cause them to do something they shouldn't do, often with regret. And so I want to encourage us all as we're examining ourselves. I don't want you just looking at, well, how is your Sabbath keeping and your tithing and your eating correctly with the kashrut and all that. I don't want to just, and I don't want you just, notice I didn't say I didn't want you to do it. I don't want you to just look at your Torah observance, the mechanics. And I don't want you to just look at, do you have the fruit, love, joy, peace, patience, etc. I want you to look at the strength that you have. Because some of you need to go to the gym. And I don't mean like to go to the physical gym. I mean like to figure out how to strengthen yourself so that you're not letting your emotions drive, that they only come out at appropriate times and appropriate levels. They could develop the strength so you don't just give in and be pushed around by every wind of people around you pushing on you. Because a lot of you come to me like, well, you know, I listened to that teaching and then I talked to my brother and, oh goodness, here we go. And I talked to my father, or I talked to my mother, or I talked to my friend, and then next thing you know, that person is now influencing you more than whatever I said. You should be able to choose the source of your information logically and rationally and based on anointed or appointed, that kind of thing, and then be able to say, no, I'm not receiving from anything else. I mean, that's not me trying to control you to say you just have to listen to me. But if I'm your anointed appointed, why are you listening to somebody else? Why are you letting a family member, a Christian family member, a secular Christian family member, or just a secular family member shake your tree about what you're trying to do that they don't understand anyway? Seriously. Oh, but this person's in the Torah walk too. Are they? They claim to be. I'd like to put that to the test and see if they really are. Look, we live in a very interesting time. There seems to be a growth spurt, we'll call it. You know, where more people are being bubble popped and coming towards this understanding. The understanding of Yeshua in the context of Torah. All right, that's the Messianic Torah observant Israel thing. So it seems like a lot of people out there are starting to realize, well, there is a Sabbath, and maybe I need to eat different. I mean, they're realizing some of this stuff to whatever degree. You know, there's a ruler of this world. Everybody knows there is, and it's not the creator. Hasatan has been given authority on this world at this time. Yes? Okay. Is he smarter than all of us? Yes. So do you think he's aware of what's happening? Yes. Do you think he's trying to work out a plan to undermine all that? Absolutely. So you know what you see? I see groups forming, and then I see those groups becoming very, basically, Saturday Christians. Christianity on Saturday. There's a group you're all aware of nearby. Just go watch last week's service and the Q&A. It's complete Christianity at this point. And I know people don't like when I say that stuff. All of you out there that know me or started here and are there, I want to know, how are you able to do that? How can you be sitting in that, knowing better? But see, that's Hasatan's trick. He wants you to be appealed to with this idea of testimonies and signs and wonders, and we need to go out there and save everybody. And all this nonsense is not scripturally true. And that's what we're seeing. Some of you saw that in the congregations you came from. They want to have all of the, I don't even know what to call it, enjoyable or tantalizing trappings of where they came from, but they also want to be what they think is in the truth. So they do the worst thing that Scripture tells you to do. They mix it. And one thing I know for sure, Yahweh says very clearly he's against mixing. In other words, do not do unto me like they do. Now, if you're not strong, you will end up in one of those type of places. Like I call it, the Messacostals, the Messabaptists, the Mess of something. I'm not making this stuff up. You can go. I don't recommend it, but if you want, you can go and check these things out. But you should be able to quickly see, no, this is not for me. And not because it's just a different personality or a different teacher or whatever. It's what's really happening there. What's being taught? I sit there and listen, and I told Elder, yesterday, I said, I don't think I can do this anymore. It's just gotten that bad. I can't even listen. And I listen so I can know, so I can help you guys know. Just so I can know what's going on, and I can't even stomach it anymore. I mean, over and over again now when the teacher teaches, I'm sitting there going, no, that's wrong. No, that's not what it says. No, and no, and no. But it's funny because some of you out there will call me up or send us emails and stuff and say, oh, we found this guy. He's just like Rabbi. No. I look to those people that you send me, and I'm like, what are you listening to? Oh, they have a strong personality. I don't care what the strength of the personality is. What are they teaching you? What are they telling you the word actually says? There's a battle going on for your minds and hearts and spirits. And Hasatan's favorite tool, hopefully you know this already, is to package a lie inside of some truth. Yahweh did talk to them about eating from a tree and whether or not to eat from a tree. And Hasatan said, well, but did he say you really couldn't do this or that? I mean, in other words, he took some truth and spun it and twisted it a little bit. You know, Hasatan never took them completely out when there were Sabbath keepers and that. He just moved them to Sunday, moved them to Christmas and Easter, took away the holy days, told everybody the law was done away with. In other words, he gave them some truth. They know there's a Messiah. That's truth. The Messiah they know, that's not truth. Because that Messiah, as far as they're concerned, stands for the doing away with the covenant. Oh, no, we're in a new covenant now. No, you're in a covenant with somebody else. There's one covenant. Yahweh doesn't change. That one covenant was given at Sinai and is being renewed now with you. And lucky for you, you don't have to go all the way back to Sinai. You can read the scripture right there in your hand. You don't have to be there when it's delivered and handed out to Moshe and wait for it that way. But he wants to have a relationship with you. It's called covenant. Go listen to the Are You Covenant. I know it's 55 parts. Best 60 hours you'll ever spend. Okay? Because 55 parts of like 70 minutes each, so I don't know, like another few hours, whatever. But then you'll finally understand the relationship that he wants with you. Why 55 parts? Because we cover everything as thoroughly as we can that are dealing with the understanding of covenant and that relationship. Because I've had people pick on me saying, oh, but it's just, Paul said about the simplicity that's Messiah. And if that takes that many parts, then clearly it's not simple. Have you ever read your Bible? Is it really anywhere in that Bible that is simple? Now, it does talk about Messiah is simple. It's not simple for us because we don't have full understanding unless we get teachers that have been anointed to give us that understanding. And there's no ego or pride there. I don't normally get answers until you have a question. So it's not like I'm just sitting here knowing everything. Okay? I mean, I know a lot now because you've answered questions and I now know the answer. So if it comes up again, I know what to tell you. Which is why I love doing Q&As, because then you ask questions. And then when you ask questions, he gives me answers. But then I get a wonderful reaction out of most of you going, oh, that's so obvious. Oh, that's so simple. Oh, then why would you go somewhere else after that? And go wallow back into the vomit of where you were before. Oh, but no. But they're more loving. And they sing songs that I know from, contemporary Christian stuff. And they sing stuff from the hymnals. And people are being healed. And people are doing wonders. And people, go back to church. If that's what you want, go back to church. You're not ready. You're not ready. This is calling you out like a nation out of a nation. And what did he say when they went through from Egypt to Sinai to the land? He said, you're going to go through other groups of peoples. Don't do what they do and then attribute it to me. Isn't that exactly what Christianity is? They're attributing it to him, but it's stuff that came from those interminglings of pleasing those people. I don't know how a Christian can do Easter. You don't know? Read your encyclopedia. I'm not making anything up. It's Ishtar worship. Where do you think that came from? Oh, no, we're celebrating the resurrection of Messiah. No, you're dealing with something that was from Ishtar. And what does that have to do with an egg-laying rabbit that's chocolate eggs or whatever? I mean, what is that? Okay? But there is a connection to Ishtar. Okay, so are we ready to be strong enough to stand up and say, look, a lot of you made this statement, but are you strong enough to mean it? I just want the truth, but wait, and I'm committed to walk in it. See, a lot of you say, oh, I just want the truth, but you're not ready to walk in it. Because I'll show you the truth, and you'll give me all kinds of arguments and discussions and make excuses, and you're not going to do it. And you'll look for ways not to do it. It's unfortunate. I can tell you with confidence that I'm going to make a number up because I don't know exactly the number, but I'm guessing around 35 to 45% of our questions come from people who should know better, but because they're weak, they're hoping to get a different answer. Is that about right? Elder said yes. Rabbi Tom, about right? 35, 45%? Okay. That's just my guess from my experience. So when they ask the questions, I sometimes call them out on it and go, okay, do you really not know the answer, or are you just hoping for a different answer? I mean, do you really not know about because a lot of it comes down to things like Sabbath keeping, tithing, and the feasts. Basic and kashrut, those are like 4 basic things. And a lot of them, the tithing questions, I'm like the same thing. Well, do I get my emergency fund set up first, or do I tithe? I don't know. How do you have the capacity to remember to breathe? I mean, what is the problem? Yahweh comes first. Without exception. Like, just Yahweh comes first. I could have just ended with that statement. Yahweh comes first, period. So, do I do this before? No. You do nothing before what he's supposed to get. The answer is no. But I got people trying to, because you guys don't want to do it. You don't want to put your money in his pocket. Oh, you think you're putting it in mine. No, you're giving it to him like he told you to. But I want to fix my emergency fund. I want to pay off my debt. Fix your thing with Yahweh first, and he'll help you do all the other things. There's a widow who put a mite into the offering box. And Yeshua pointed out, look at that commitment. She has every excuse in the world to do nothing, and yet she came to give what she could give. Or at least we don't know whether it's an offering or what, but she gave something that she felt obligated to give, that she wanted to do. You guys look for excuses not to do. When you look for excuses not to do, you know what we call that? Weak. And you're going to get mad at me when I call you guys weak. I want you to own whatever part. Now, some of you are very strong in some areas and weak in others. You need to fix that place that you're weak. Maybe you're weak in your relationships. Maybe you're weak in your tithing. Maybe you're weak in how you eat as far as kashrut is. Maybe you're weak in terms of your job because your boss can yank your chain and make you work on Saturday. We get calls. Whoever's going to watch this is going to be thinking I'm talking about them. We get these calls all the time, okay? With people saying things like, well, what should I do? They're telling me that I might lose my job if I don't work Saturday. Well, then plan to get a new job. Oh, well, should I try to sue them about it? You won't win anyway. If you do win, they'll fire you for something else anyway. They'll just wait and find any plausible reason and get rid of you. So you can't really win. But why are you even arguing about it? Take the hint. They don't want to let you work on Saturday. Find a way to work on Saturday. All right? Look, you know what? And we talked about this, I think, in the Level Up classes. I've talked about this at Rosh Chodesh before. Back in the day, people worked for themselves. Mostly, okay? There are parables about workers that came to work in the field, but people worked for themselves. And when you worked for yourself, you had freedom of time. You could choose to work or not work as needed as things came up. Most of my life, nobody could make me work on Saturday or any day. Of course, now I'm completely made to work on Saturday because the boss is the boss. Okay? But that's because I'm doing his work. But if you work for yourself, you can't get fired. You can't be given grief over what days you work. You can't worry about, you don't have no issue with taking off for holy days and Sabbaths and things. So I'm not saying quit what you're doing and go work for yourself. I'm saying it may be something that you want to head towards at some point. Because always remember, we're supposed to come out of Egypt. Egypt is slavery. Every boss is a slave owner, so to speak. You are a slave to that boss because he can make you do or not do. He can pay you or not. He can fire you or not. He can make you come in or not. He can make you work longer hours or not, whatever. That boss properly does have authority over you because that's by agreement. You agreed to that relationship. Okay? And I can tell you, as a boss, and I know that my staff works very hard. I hate when they take off. They deserve it. They earn it. But all I'm thinking is, but then that work isn't getting done. Okay? And then I always tease them. I go, slackers, you're taking off again. No, I want to reverse that in the future and just tell you guys, please enjoy your time. You deserve it. Because you do. Okay? But I got to tell you, that's hard for me to say because I have also that mentality of if you go on vacation, then you're not here doing what I need you to do. Okay? Now, I'm the owner. I'll work every possible day and all the time because that's what owners do. I can't expect everybody to do what I do. I'm the owner. I come in anytime I feel I need to come in because it has to get done, so it falls on me. So I want you to think for a second that being your own boss means less work. It's more work, but more freedom of control if you ever choose not to work. Okay? That's all I'm telling you is it's just more freedom of control. You will work much more hours. You work for yourself. That clock is not really a clock. You're on salary, and you're going to work basically on whatever you can make out of the deal. So you're going to work. But I want you to know when we're talking about this idea of being weak, if you still think your boss can affect your Torah observance like Shabbat and holy days, then you're being weak. If it'll anger you, you're being weak. If I had a boss and my boss says, look, you need to work Saturday, and I say, well, I'm sorry, I can't. He said, well, I'm going to have to fire you. I said, fine, do what you got to do. I don't care. I'll get another job. Okay? Why? Because your blue is reacting and flipping out and thinking it's not fair, it's not justice, it's not right. Look, it is what it is. That's what my red's responding is. Okay? So I'm not going to fight with something that is what it is. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I'm not going to sit here with this phone and convince it that it's a fork or that it's a table or that it's a phone, okay? I have an employer. He wants me to work. I'm not going to convince him anything different. I can say, look, I can't do it. And if he says, well, I need to do it anyway, and you say, well, if I have to do it, I'm not going to, so you're going to have to fire me. He says, no problem, you're fired. Then good. But then what am I going to do? I don't know, get another job? Why does that scare everybody so much? You probably don't even like the one you have. I'm not kidding. Most people don't like the one they have. And they even whine and complain about how they wish they could get fired or quit, and then they get fired, and all of a sudden it's their favorite job of all time, and they love it. Somebody crazy? No, it's a weak reaction. Okay? We need to grow up. And that maturity, that growing up takes strength. If you have children, you know what I'm talking about. Some of you have adult children that never grew up, don't know how to adult, and that's because they're weak. Okay, they're weak. And you have to get strong. I'm going to upset some of you right now because you're going to think I'm being really harsh and cold. Okay? But listen up. And maybe Janet will back me up on this because she's a counselor. She knows. Some of you have been dealing with, sort of, you think you've been dealing with, your trauma and drama from when you were younger, and yet you're still 35, 45 years old, whatever you are, still like you were 8 when this happened or whatever, and you've been in this victim place your whole life, and you've not accomplished anything but to suck on your thumb and hide in your bedroom. That's weak. I'm not disrespecting whatever terrible thing happened to you. You may have been sexually molested relentlessly. You may have been beat up. You may have been told you're garbage. But that was then. Most of the people I counsel are 20 or more years away from whatever happened. Some of them are 40 or more years away from what happened. And yet, they're still in that place of weakness. They never learned to strengthen up out of that terrible place. Oh, but you don't understand. I don't know. I have a scripture that says that slaves who were beaten on and everything else you can think of walked out of Egypt to become Elohim's people. Now, some of you would have stayed in your house, in your bedroom, sucking your thumb when they left. Well, I'm just no good, and who could want me? And all. Stop that. It's time to grow up. I'm not being mean. I'm not. Look, you have two choices. You could either fight like hell to finally grow up and have that strength to overcome the drama of your life, and it's real. I'm not saying it wasn't. Or go curl up in a ball and leave the rest of us alone. Because we can't help you. Because you've already been to therapy, you've already been on medication, you've already done all these things, and none of it's working because you don't want to yet. You're still being weak. Oh, everybody's going to be so mad at me. You don't understand. Oh my gosh, I understand. I talk to so many of you. I see what's happening. I understand. And we're almost to the point where I think a lot of us would just say, fine, I don't care anymore. Okay, I'll make a point this way. How can you expect me to care more than you do? Okay? How do you expect me to work so hard to try to get you to get off your butt, get a life, get a job, function like a human being, when you want to rather sit there, quit every job you start, and lay in your bedroom with your thumb in your mouth, crying? All right? We had a lady leave here because at one point she was like 60-something years old at this point, and whatever happened to her, I knew what happened to her, and it happened to her when she was like 4. So it's 60 years. And she was back and forth with me. I said, you know what your problem is? Your problem is that you've never dealt with your problems. She goes, oh, what are you talking about? I've been to 14 psychologists, and I've taken them. No, you did all these things as Band-Aids thinking they would fix you, but you got to fix you. Nothing's going to work till you participate in the process. She didn't want to let go of the drama, trauma, pain. It was almost like an addiction, addicted to that comfort of being in that pain place. Well, what if I let it go and it doesn't work? Well, what if you just stay miserable and die? I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be mean. But how about finding the strength to live? It takes strength to live. You want to live forever? Not the way you are. You want to be forever in that tortured condition you're in right now? Oh, but I was abused and raped and this. I'm sure you were, and I'm sure that was awful. I'm sure it screwed you up really bad for a while, but there's a path out of that I know so many people can tell you who had the same experience, and now they have a life. Okay? So what's the difference? Some of them decided to stop being a victim and figure out how to find a life. Okay? Look, we're like a mental health clinic over here. I'm not saying that jokingly. We do very little counseling that has anything to do with Torah. I mean, 10% maybe. Like a kashrut issue, a tithing issue, some other thing. But really the issue isn't even that. It's some other thing that really they're struggling with in growing up and maturing and adulting. So almost all of it ends up being in that. See, but you guys are still coming from the church thing but I made the altar call, I'm in. No. I'm sorry to tell you, but that's not the way it works. No. He called you because of who you can become. What you can become. He didn't call you because of what you are. He called you knowing that you could become him. But you're not going to become him staying you. It's a new moon. It's a new month. It's time to wake up, get strong, and realize you can become him. But I don't know how to do that. All right. In my class, in that Level Up class we talked about, so I'm going to share that with you guys here, something you all have heard in your life. Where there's a will, there's a way. But if you're weak, there's no will, so there's no way. So your job in all of this is not figuring out how. Your job is to get the will. The how will come. You'll find the people you need. You'll get the information you need. You'll get the help you need. You'll find the medication if that's whatever it is, you'll find it if you want it. That's the will. You have to want to make it to the kingdom. You have to want to live this life the best you can. You have to want to become Yeshua-like. When Yahweh says love him, he doesn't say, listen, I want you to love me and nobody else. He didn't say that. I mean, he said that, but he said a whole lot more. What did he say? I want you to do it because it's going to take all you've got. He didn't just, see, you read it the other way. You read, I want you to love me with all your heart, mind. No, he's saying to love me is going to take all your heart, mind, being, and strength. Oh, that's a whole different way to look at it. Because you're thinking, well, I love him with everything. I don't love anybody more. No, all your heart, all your mind, all your being, all your strength. It's going to take all of that to love him and to love each other. I got a bunch of people married ready for divorce because they don't have the strength to stop being bothered by all the petty nonsense that's bothering them. I'm talking like, probably, look, I counsel mostly Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays now. At least 3 or 4 of those counsel sessions will be about marriages about to die. So if you think I'm talking about you, I mean, this is every week, 3 to 4 different couples having a marriage problem because they are not mature enough to learn each other and adjust and stop acting the baby. But we don't match up in these things, so we adjust to each other or just get out, but stop whining. Do you know in Scripture, whining is like unto what? He opens the ground and swallows you up. That's what whining equals. You think I have no tolerance for whining? The Creator has no tolerance for whining and complaining. Okay, they whine and complain about quail. He says, sure, I'll give you enough till it comes out your nose and you die. Okay, you want more food? Choke on it. I'm not making that up. That's your Creator. Okay? He wants mature people filled with shalom, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, meekness, etc. He's not looking for whining, complaining, selfish, whatevers. I mean, that's what we are. That's what you see in Scripture. I'm not making this up. They were that way from the minute they came out of Egypt. And all of us laugh and look at how stupid they are, and then we do the same thing. Don't we? That's why I did the teaching, what are you thinking? Because a lot of you are looking at them going, what are they thinking? He just brought them out of Egypt. You know, why would they be complaining? I don't know. Why are you complaining? What makes you so different? He's brought you out of your personal Egypt. He's rescued you out of all kinds of junk. He's delivered you out of other junk. And he's done all these wonders and miracles in your life, and you're still complaining. That's weak. Okay, that is weak. Well, I'm not going to say anything else. There's a lot of other words that come after weak that could offend some people. But it is. It's just weak. And then we play the victim, which is weak. How about playing the hero? Oh, I don't know. I can't be a hero. What is a hero anyway? Simply a person who does what has to get done when nobody else is doing it. A person who's willing to do what has to get done. That's a hero. They show up when they're needed and do what has to get done. Any one of you can do that. Okay? Be a hero, not a victim. All right? But heroes, I'm not talking about muscles, okay? Heroes are strong in here and up here. They're not afraid. A hero's courageous. Look, there's an old saying, okay, that says a hero dies once, but a coward dies 1,000 deaths. Why do you guys do that? Because you live in fear all your life, and you're miserable because of that fear all your life. Well, but what if? Well, what if? So what? Most of what you what if isn't going to happen anyway, and you know that, because most of what you worried about your whole life never happened. Look, one of the things I've been saying a lot lately, and you need to hear this and remember this, reality, like actual reality, fixes or cures most problems, okay? So in reality, almost everything you've ever worried about never happened. That is truth. You know it. Own it. Live in that. Then realize that worrying is a waste of energy, waste of time. Plus, you know that the few times that it did happen, the worrying did not make it any less. So the worrying is the most useless thing you can do. Now, I'm not saying have no concerns. A concern is something that you're aware of that make you make different choices that help you be safe. That's a concern. Like when I notice that, for example, my tire is getting a little bald, that's a concern. I need to do something about it because it may pop. But I'm not worried about it breaking. I'm aware there's a problem that may be there, and then I can make a choice to fix and mitigate that problem. It's a concern. I'm aware of a potential problem. Worried, what's going to happen? What if it breaks? What if I'm on the road? What if I crash? What if it doesn't happen? Like the other million things that never happened in your life that you worried about. Because you already know the statistics. There's a book, I think, out there Carnegie wrote called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And I think in the book, there's a statistical chart that it says basically that 90-something% of everything you ever worried about never happens. And of the whatever 5% of the stuff that does happen, like 4 out of those 5%, was like no big deal. And like only 1% or less of all the things you worry about, even if it does happen, is even really a problem as close as what you thought it would be. So why do we worry about everything? We're told not to worry. Matthew 6, the Messiah says, why do you worry? The Gentiles worry. The world worries. Why are you worried about stuff? Stop worrying. You're not given the spirit of fear, but what? Sound mind. Well, what's a sound mind? Not yours. His. You don't have a sound mind. Your mind's making a lot of sounds, though. Murmur, whine, complain. Let this mind be in you is the sound mind. The mind with shalom, the mind with peace, right? The mind with love, joy, all that. That's a sound mind. The worry, the fear, the doubt, that's not a sound mind. We like to say that Hasatan has a crazy mind, an unsound mind. He's the king of worry, fear, and doubt. So you have his mind, that's what you have. So when you're worrying, realize you're giving it to Hasatan, you have his mind. Did Yeshua worry about anything? No. Do you think the Father worries about anything? No. Why do you worry about anything? I get people come up to you all the time about something's going on going, are you worried about that? No. Or how come that doesn't bother you? Why does it need to bother me? Well, because it bothers them. And they'll come to me like, can you believe? And then I'm like, I can't believe you're wasting my time is what I can't believe. Why do I have to hear this? And then you think I'm all rude because I don't want to hear you blather your, fear, doubt, worry, concern, judging, criticisms about everything. Ladies, if you're married to a man, I didn't say a male, I said a man. Okay, if you're married to a man, your man does not want to hear any whining, complaining, or criticism. Men do not do well with that. I'm not even talking about if it has nothing to do with them even. I mean, we do not want drama. We don't want all that nonsense. You want to do that nonsense? Find a girlfriend to talk to and share all the nonsense you want. Because I know you need to get it out for whatever reason. That's fine. The man wants to know, are you safe? Am I providing well for you? The man needs to hear compliments of encouragement that he's doing a good job, okay? He needs to be loved, and he needs to be protected. So you're all thinking, I'm helping him, always protecting him from this and this. No, protect him from you, or at least from your mouth, okay? I'm serious. Protect him from your mouth. He doesn't need to hear all that stuff. He comes home and all the kids and everything else, don't dump all that on him. Vent that to somebody else. Only bring it to him if it's something he can fix. If you need him to do something, and then ask him to do it. Well, can you believe what your son, blah, 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 your daughter, blah, 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 and all this other stuff. You want him to get emotionally involved. Instead, just say, we had a situation today, I think you need to talk to your son about blah, blah, blah. Keep the drama out of it. Keep the emotion out of it. Let me, man, we're on a nice little sermon here. And I'm not done. Because I just feel like I'm on a roll here. Listen, shh. One of the things you need to understand, immature, weak people do. Listen, you need to own this. You make an effort to get others to feel your feelings. Did you hear what I said? So when a husband comes home or whatever, or you're talking to your friend and you go, can you believe so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. You're saying that in such a way that you're not sharing information. You think you are. You're trying to get them to feel the way you do about the person or the situation. You want to have an empathy reaction. You want them to feel what you feel. Why? You're already miserable feeling that way. Why do you want to share that with anybody? It's not working for you. Well, why should I be the only miserable person? You ever heard the phrase, misery loves company? Because they feel better when more people feel miserable with them. So, husband comes home, and the wife is now going to talk about the things that she wants him to feel because she's all upset and she feels it. Instead of just saying, honey, I'm having a hard day. This is some of the things that happen. I need you to help me feel better. And he can say, I got this. I'll fix that. Come here. Let me hold you for a minute. Whatever. Instead of trying to get him angry, hurt, upset, offended, or whatever it is you are. See, people say, well, when are you going to talk about marriages and stuff? Right now, I just did that. Okay? Did you catch what I just said? When he comes home, you do not go to try to get him into your negative space about whatever you're upset about. You're supposed to protect him from that. Oh, well, you mean I can't go to my husband? Not like that, you can't. What? You go to him for comfort. You can go to him for protection. You can go to him to fix or solve or go handle something because it was bad and needs to be handled. Don't try to suck him into your vortex of nonsense and drama and pain and complaining and whining and whatever and offense that you had from your kid or your whatever else happened. Why would you do that to him? And guys, you definitely don't do that. Don't you come home with whatever happened on the job and dump that on her. You don't want it from her, so you certainly should not be doing that to anybody else. You got a problem with the job? Find a man to talk to about what's going on in the job, and that man will tell you you're being a little girl, a little baby, and smack you, and then you can grow up. I'm sorry, did that actually come out of my mouth? Because your wife can't do that. And if she tried, you'd be divorced. But you can come to me, and I can do that. And tell you, just knock it off, stop whining and complaining, change your diaper, get your thumb out of your mouth, and move on. Okay? But you can't do that to them. But if they have a good coworker, a good friend, somebody that they're sort of, accountable with, and etc., they can say to them, yeah, I know, it gets tough sometimes, but hey, listen, you can handle it. They'll give them the right encouragement. I was just kind of being extreme there. But that's what it sounds like to me when people come to me anyway. And Billy's like, yeah, because I say it to him too after I get off the phone. I'm like, I need to get a box of Depends and start handing them out. That's adult diapers. Okay? And some pacifiers. And then I think, how are these people going to put on the immortal suit? They can't even wear the clothes they're in right now. The flesh suit doesn't even work for you. And you want to trade up. You're still in the diaper, like little kid stage, with the emotions ruling everything. And everything makes you cry, and everything makes you upset. And didn't that stop like at 4 or 5? Shouldn't it certainly have stopped by 20, 18, something like that? But I got people doing that at 50 and 60 and 70. Like, you kidding me? But look, that's what we're dealing with, right? So I want to encourage you. This is a new moon. This is a new month. Let's grow up. Let's work on being adults to go into the Passover meal and start walking out of Egypt on our hind legs with our back straight, not crawling on all fours with a diaper. But gird your loins up, put sandals on, get your staff in hand, and ready to go. Amen? Amen. Dare I open up the mic for questions? Did anybody want to ask or say anything? Rob has something from online. Okay.
Yeah, it was from me, Rabbi. Something you was talking about earlier, talking about not, I guess being susceptible or whatever, being, able to be easily swayed or changed or something. I know, when my bubble got popped, at the church, and then, I wasn't even looking for this. I didn't know what I was looking for, and I found, kind of what you were saying. I would looked up counterfeit Christianity or something like that.
You were looking for a short, mad, angry Jewish guy from New York.
That's what I found. I mean, hallelujah. But, so at what point are you not being, you're not easily being swayed, but you don't want to seem stubborn, because it took quite a few, I guess, Messianic or somewhat Torah, journey to get here. So, and I'm like, okay, I'm not,
good question.
I don't want to seem stubborn, but I could be, molded or changed because now I have a teacher. But
all right, now, two things. I'll give you two sort of approaches here. One, there's a difference, right, between if you're with an anointed. In the beginning, you're looking for somebody. You don't know what you're looking for, you haven't found. So you're going to find lots of different people that are sort of in the teacher role, but that might not be the teacher you're looking for. So how you respond to that is different than when you actually find your teacher. Because if you found your teacher, then the idea of discipleship is what's coming in, even though we're not formally doing that, which means that you don't argue with your teacher. Now, the susceptibility thing is that when you're first coming into this especially, some people still do it later on, which is really surprising that it still goes on. Not surprising, like it happens. I just don't understand why it would still be happening, is that you sort of kind of believe what the last person you spoke to kind of pushed in your face. You kind of move towards whatever new convincing argument, and you're susceptible to, it's kind of like Tevye where he goes, you are right. And then the guy goes, well, what about this? He goes, you are right. And the guy goes, they can't both be right. He goes, you are right. You don't want to be like Tevye. But he was that way because he didn't know anything. And so he was just easily swayed by what sounded like it made sense at the time. So no, you don't want to be stubborn, but you want to have strength to say, I found my teacher. I'm going to go with that teacher's way of understanding that. I'm not saying any teacher. I'm talking about an Ephesians 4:11 teacher. If you don't have one of those, then you just have a teacher, of any sort you want to call it. Well, that's all well and good. Look for an Ephesians 4:11 teacher. Well, what does that look like? They're anointed. Well, how do you know if they're anointed? You'll know. It's different. They won't sound like everybody else. They won't have the power behind what they say like everybody else. And it won't rip into you like everybody else. It'll rip into you in ways it never ripped into you before. Because it's his word coming out of that person, and he's simply an instrument of the voice. And so you'll recognize that. I don't know how you're going to do it. You'll recognize that. If that's what you're looking for, you'll find it. I've had a lot of people come up to me and say, Rabbi, I don't know what to say, but I know you are that, okay? And I don't always ask, well, how did you figure it out? Probably not the same for everybody else, but they just know. Elder will tell you that when I spoke to him and I answered questions in 5 minutes that he had his whole life that nobody answered, he knew. Everybody's different. But that's his story, and I only know that because he's told all of you the same story. But so, Rob, we just have to be careful. Look, I had a guy used to call up. Now, granted, this guy was not in our ministry. He found me online because of the teaching I did on divorce and remarriage. He watched the teaching, and then he watched 50 other teachings other people did. He was all confused, so he called me. I walked him through the whole process. I think I straightened him out so he understood what I was teaching, and he was okay with that. Then 6 months later, he's on the phone with me all confused again because he went out and listened to other teachers. And so every time I'd straighten him out, he would get blown around by whoever the teacher was he wanted to be impressed with that week. And I told him after the third time this happened, I said, your problem is not divorce and remarriage, and your problem isn't understanding this stuff. Your problem is you don't have a teacher. You have no authority in your life to tell you, this is it, walk in it, stop listening to everybody else. Oh, that sounds so cultish. It's scriptural. It'd be cultish if I demanded you to believe that that was me. I don't care if it's not me. I'm telling you from Scripture, you got to find a person of the fivefold to listen to and stop arguing. And let them be the voice that settles all arguments. That's Deuteronomy 17 and Ephesians 4. But you guys, you're so used to just thinking that all pastors, rabbis, teachers are interchangeable. Didn't they all go to the same schools and learn basically the same stuff, blah, blah, blah? Well, maybe if you're a Baptist or a Methodist or Lutheran, most of them teach exactly the same thing, whatever denomination you came from, because they went to that kind of seminary. I didn't go to any of that stuff. I'm not going to match up with anything you ever heard. As a matter of fact, I'm going to say a lot of things you've never heard. I don't do that on purpose. It's just I say things that you will have never heard anywhere else. And so often he gives me something, and I go, ooh, that's something I never thought of, and I know nobody's ever heard it. But I can see where, when I share it with you, you go, oh my gosh, that's it. That's exactly lines up perfectly. It's a perfect fit of the two pieces of the puzzle coming together, and now it makes sense for me. That, by the way, is another sign of that anointing. Putting that putting the puzzle together in a way that you never could have come up with, you've never heard anywhere before, because that's the thing Abba does to show you this person is different. And I say that with all humility. Okay, I didn't ask for this position. I appreciate and do it the best I can, but I also don't have any hesitation to recognize that he's doing something different. And that I have a role that's different than just the run-of-the-mill teacher. And I don't have any pride or ego about it. Elder can tell you, he walks around me all day long. I'm not walking around strutting around like an arrogant, cocky, whatever. Okay? I'm just a regular guy doing his job who happens to have an anointing to do this. And so when counseling's going on and I hear something and I walk into his room, I just see and hear and understand something just instantly, stuff that, not that he can't figure it out, or whatever, but it just comes to me differently because that's my job and my role. And so I'll walk in, and he's so humble, he just steps out of the way unless we get to the phone. Because usually it's on speaker so I can hear it, and I walk in. I don't know how I do it. Well, actually, I do. I know how he's doing it. I'm not doing anything except being available. And so that's what we're talking about here. So, Rob, did that answer the question?
Yes, sir, it does. The reason I was bringing it up is just because, I don't know, I'm just speaking from me personally, is I'm here, I'm dug in now that, that you are my teacher, and, and I, like you say, I go through all these older teachings, and I still glean more stuff because I didn't know then, but now I'm even a deeper understanding that a lot of these older teachings I'm getting back from you is just that, looking up on, the years that we've been coming here, been a part of this, and seeing people come and go backwards is that just a sign of their stubbornness, or they're just weak with that?
Stubbornness comes out of weakness. Okay? Strength, taking a stand is strength. Being stubborn is weak. Okay? Because taking a stand comes out of a strength of understanding and conviction. Being stubborn is, I don't like it, I'm not doing it. Or I like this, I'm not giving it up. Okay? As opposed to, I know this is right and I'm not going to bend. I'm not going to break. Right? We will not bend, we will not break, right? The song Brianna sings. Okay? So that's the difference. Stubborn is defending and protecting you. That's what stubborn is. You may think you're protecting him or somebody else, but really it's still about you. So it's weak, all right? You may think it takes strength to be stubborn. No, it's a weakness. Don't be stubborn. You might need to make a stand. Your boss tells you need to work Saturday, take a stand. That's strength. You're making it. That's not being stubborn. When you tell him you can't, that's making a stand. So you need to make a stand. That's strength. Did that answer now? Okay, good. All right, Shama Steve.
All right, just two comments. One, it says, I just had a thought as you were talking, a couple different ones. It's the leaven that keeps us from rising to the best we can become.
Oh, that's interesting. Good. I like the way you put that.
And then the other one is, we like having others miserable so we don't have to lift ourselves out of misery.
That's good. That's real good. Look, misery loves company. Misery also doesn't like you trying to elevate out. So anytime you try to rise up, everybody's going to be pulling on your legs and throwing rocks at you. You try to do something that takes you out of the group that you're in, elevates you out, or you start walking this out in a way that's Torah observant and they don't get it. All your Christian friends all excited when you went to make this move? But you got attacked because they don't want you to do it. Because they're not able to do what you're doing, that threatens them in a way that they need to attack you. And that's you have to have the strength to say, look, I'm sorry this makes you uncomfortable, but I need to do this. And I need to do this because I need to do this. All right? Janet?
Thank you for being so real with us. I so much appreciate you, Rabbi, everything. I forgot my notebook today, and I need to go back and take notes.
It's a good thing it's recorded then.
Yes, but I wanted to say that when you were talking about how some people cannot overcome trauma, drama, whatever, even through going through 20, whatever, therapists.
Let me ask you a question. You
Yes.
work with these people. Was I being mean?
No.
Okay.
You're just right on. This
thank
is
you.
really how it is. And in fact, we have a term in psychology that is called secondary gain, which is going to be something is keeping you in that place of being victimized. You're getting a reward from it, whether attention, whatever it is. So there's a reason why there's, some people can stay in that place. And yeah, if there's no will, there's no way, like you said. So I appreciate that. I also appreciate my husband and the way you reminded me of how to bring something up, because he can be very rational and I can have that rational conversation. He can help me see things that maybe in my emotions I can't at the moment. But I like what you said about that. And then the other thing, Rabbi, is about boundaries. When you were saying, like how in your emotion you want to bring somebody to see your side of the story and feel the same way like you do. And so if you don't want to be swept in that direction, we need to be strong too to set boundaries. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
With other people? Maybe you
Yes.
can share a bit more
All right,
about
I
that.
even want to clarify one of the phrases you said. I think there's a difference between wanting somebody to see and understand your side of something and then doing it in a way that's going to skew the feelings about it. Okay? Something happened. I want you to understand that I was upset about it, and I want you to kind of see where I was coming from so is different than this happened, and I think, and you're angry, and you want me to be angry about it too. Okay? Those are two different things. I can still, with the first scenario, see where you're coming from, because you're telling me you're upset. I don't mind coming home, my wife telling me she's upset. I don't want her to try to get me upset. Let me know what's happening. Look, a real man wants to fix, be the hero, be the provider, rescue the damsel in distress, or whatever needs to happen. Ladies, if you would just be more the damsel in distress, he may want to come and save you. Instead, you're the wicked witch snapping at him. Okay? Do you know what those children did all day? Okay, who wants to save that? But you come home and you look sort of pathetic and like, sweetheart, I'm so glad you're home. The children have been so hard on me. And he goes, oh, come here. But you guys are snapping and cackling like, because you're mad. Well, let him know you're mad. Just don't be mad and direct it at him and try to get him mad. Okay? That's the problem. All right, Ashley.
Thank you for that, Rabbi. You just gave me something that I can use for Mike when he wants to stay home and work on a project. You want to stay home with these kids all day and work on that project? I'm going to be using that.
That was the opposite of what I said, but okay.
Yeah, but it works. For him, it will.
You are one of my problem students.
I flip everything in my head. I always do that. My question is...
No, if Mike wants to stay home and work, then you want to say, I will do everything I can to provide you with what you need so that you have peace while you're working, which is the opposite of what you said. Okay, go ahead.
If he is
and
having...
Mike, you're welcome.
Sometimes you can't just talk back, and that stinks sometimes.
Well, you could try. It won't go well.
I've learned.
It won't go well.
My question is, if Because I'm more of the red personality between the two of us, and if he's having a blue out with one of his medical conditions going on, if I'm in a very red moment, how do I, because I want him to be elevated up so he can provide, take care for the family, stuff like that. How do I do that being red? And because I don't want to deal with that sometimes. How would you recommend that?
All right, look, these things are going to be unique to everybody's situation, so you have to do the same thing I've told you in all relationships. You need to observe. Okay, so you observe and notice that Mike does a certain thing when certain things trigger. Okay, and then you learn that there may be some things that if you do them, it makes it better, and other things if you do them, it doesn't. Or you can ask in a moment when he's maybe not having the emotional outburst, hey, next time that happens, what can I do, if anything, that might help it? Maybe he'll tell you there's nothing you could do, just stay out of the way. Maybe he'll just let him help you understand. Or if you tried something and it worked, then you know. If you tried something that doesn't work, then you know. But you have to be paying attention to what's going on and what else is happening around it that either makes it worse or better. Okay, but don't feel like you have to do anything in particular. You have to let that be something you guys work out together. You need to talk to him who's having the meltdown or whatever's causing him to have that outburst and find out, is there anything I can do for you right now?
Okay.
Don't try to ask him, hey, is there anything I can do?
He always says nothing.
Then you have to accept that if you're red. Okay. So don't tell me you're being red and then you're not going to accept it. If he says nothing, then it is what it is. All right? Okay. Because then the blue side, you want to fix it from the emotional, but I want to make it right. I don't want it to be this way. And now you want to impose yourself. All right? Gotcha. Reds fix things. Blues need them to be fixed. It's a totally different thing. Okay? All right? Because a red's going to sit there going, he said nothing, I'm going to give him nothing. That's it. I'm not going to, I'll ask. I might even ask a second time, are you sure? Sure there's nothing? Just to be sure? Okay, nothing? Okay, I'll leave you alone. Let me know if there's something. I'll do something. Okay? All right, anybody else? You have some online? Go ahead.
I have just one. Delia Alonzo, Rabbi, how do I approach you not only as Rabbi, but as Father, Papa, Daddy, but not sound to you like I'm childish /weak when I need to talk about things in my past? I don't know how to reconcile, or I'm learning something new and different, especially with the concept of Father.
All right. So, look. All of you need to understand that when you approach anybody for counsel, just approach them for counsel. Don't think it through. Don't overthink it. Then the person, if they're a good counselor, will help you understand this is a place of weakness you need to strengthen. This is okay here. Let me help you process that, whatever it is. But you need to simply come as you are at that moment. You can't, alter that, and then you're not really going to be asking for counsel properly. Come in whatever, you may come, I've had people come crying and flipping out. I've had people very calm and quiet, everything in between. Come as you are, and then you'll learn over time how to interact. Now, in your case, and this is something that we do a little bit here, is we cover people that really have never had a father experience. Well, not a good one. I mean, they've had a father, but they haven't had that proper. So, what would you have normally wanted a father to be like? What would you have wanted to be able to go to your father about? So yes, you can go to your father and share things that you're upset about and are in pain and everything else. Again, without trying to get them to feel the same way you do. Although if you try, that's okay. I will simply say, I understand, but I'm not going to feel like you do about it. I'm going to understand that that's how you feel, and we'll work with that. Because a proper father, or husband, by the way, men, I'm going to smack you guys a little bit. You need to validate your wife's feelings. In other words, if she's upset, you don't have to agree with why she's upset, but acknowledge, I understand that upset you. Because it did. Okay? And she is upset. So if someone comes to me and they're all upset, I will acknowledge, I understand that you're upset, and I understand it upsets you. Let me help you process that. Let me help you sort it through, maybe to minimize that or deal with it. But I will certainly acknowledge that. Now, I'm not going to acknowledge that you should have been upset, because that's a judgment statement on my part, right? That's where we run into trouble, is making those judgments. I'm not going to sit there and tell you whether you should have unless you ask me and say things that would be more like a father-daughter thing, like, was that my reaction okay? Well, actually, I think you overreacted. Actually, I think your reaction was perfect. I can come and give you that at that point. But let's validate the ladies that I understand that if everything happened the way you're saying, why you would feel that way. I understand that you feel that way. Let's sort this through. Maybe what happened is not exactly what she said, and she's over-exaggerating it. And if you calm her down and she sorts through the feelings, we can get to what really happened, and then we can help her calm the whole thing down. Maybe it was worse, and she did pretty good. I don't know. But you can't just look at her like, well, that's stupid. You shouldn't be upset about that. Guys do that. That's dumb. Why are you upset about that? Don't judge that. It's where they are right now in their journey. That's the right reaction for them. Now, when they elevate a little bit, they may react differently. But who they are right at that moment, that was their reaction. Just like who you are at that moment is going to be your reaction. By the way, you're not necessarily, I hope, reacting to things today like you did, say, 10 years ago. At least not everything. Some things you're reacting better because you've grown up a little bit. Some things you're reacting exactly the same because you haven't grown up a little bit. That's kind of the encouragement I gave you guys tonight. Let's start growing up a little more. Okay, next.
That's the only one I had, Rabbi.
All right, wait, Rocky's coming up.
I hate coming up here without knowing the address of this particular verse, but it says somewhere, I think it's in Matthew, but where exactly at, I'm not sure. And it says that the kingdom of heaven or the esteem of heaven is like a field with a hidden treasure in it. And it says that you would go home and you would sell everything you had and you'd come back and you'd buy that field. Well, you're part of that hidden treasure. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. You know, let's assume for a second that I'm an Ephesians 4:11 anointed person of whatever sort. Look, Yeshua himself, when he came, there were people that didn't appreciate what they'd found. So it's not uncommon for that. I mean, it's a very common thing. And so I scratch my head often with people that have been here and left, how they couldn't see it, you know? And it's funny because I've had people come and say things like, Rabbi, I just want people to see you like I see you. And you know what I don't see right now? Them. They're gone. Okay? And they've stood up during praise time, taken a microphone, and literally said those words. Apparently, whatever they thought they saw, they didn't end up agreeing with later or something. They allowed something to come in and shake their tree. Same thing with Yeshua. Yeshua said some really bizarre things, and you sit there going, why would he say that? To shake a few trees to see what they would do. And it worked. A few of the nuts fell out of the tree. Okay? And so they didn't walk with him anymore. I told my wife this a long time ago. I said, look, you know, whatever size we end up getting, we're not going to get, you know, like the big super mega churches like, you know, the Blinkies of the world. What's his name? Olstein. You ever see him talk and his eyes blink when his mouth moves? Okay. You'll have to go check him out now because you're going to have to see what I'm saying. It's bizarre. I think he's doing Morse code with his eyelids. It's a different message than whatever's coming in his mouth. No, if he's not talking, his eyes are wide open. As soon as he moves his mouth, his eyes blink. All right. So, but I always told her, I said, the teaching will always be a filter. The message will always be a filter because it's meant to be. You know, people, even in Scripture, you see people saying, but the message is hard. It's a flesh killer. Of course it's hard. It's killing you. Well, the old you. Because that old you's got to die so that you can really live. And that old you whines and complains, is insecure, is trauma, drama, and victim, and all that. Put that in the water and leave it there. Okay? Come out free. You know, a lot of you talk about, oh, I'm free now, Messiah. You guys are in bondage like crazy. Emotional bondage. To all of that stuff that's unresolved in your life that you're not willing to let go, that's holding you back from being everything you could be. It's limiting you. And so absolutely 100%, the word is going to be strong, and it's going to be a challenge for some of you at some time. Well, all of you at some point. There's always going to be some part of it. And by the way, to what I'm trying to think, it was Rob was saying, I think, what Shamash Rob was saying is, this is why I've told you, you need to go back and listen to some things that you haven't listened to in a few years, because you are going to hear so much that you missed because you weren't where you needed to be to understand that part at that time. You go back and listen to something you haven't listened to in 3, 4, 5 years, if you've been doing it that long with me, and you'll be like, I'm not talking about just a new person going to the oldest teachings. You could do that anyway. What I'm saying is something that I already taught you and you haven't listened to in a year or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever it is. The longer, the better. You go back and you'll be like, whoa. 2 things will happen. One, you're going to understand it so much better than the first time because now you have all these other teachings that help give you context. And my challenge with you is I can't really teach you anything unless you already heard everything, because I'm going to mention things that you won't understand right without the other teachings. Every time I say salvation, every time I say, leaven, every time I say anything, fear, doubt, when I talk about overcoming, if you don't have the teaching that talked about all those things, you're not going to understand. You're only going to understand it in whatever little part of the context you may already have, but that's it. And a lot of that may be wrong depending on where you learned it. So then you'll think you know what I'm talking about. Now you know what I'm talking about if you've heard the other teachings. So then you go back and you're like, oh, okay. Some of you have told me part of your testimony of your journey was you listened to the teachings initially and didn't like it at all. And then you went back later and realized, oh, I just wasn't able to process that the first time. Now you're ready to handle that. And that's why when people ask me, well, where do I start? I don't know where to tell you to start because I don't know what's going to be what you needed to hear to start with. I always tell people the same thing. Go to the website, look at the names of the teachings, go look at the YouTube, whatever, and find something that grabs you. That's probably where because it doesn't matter where you start. You need them all anyway. Okay? I don't know a lot of teachers that can say that. You need everything that I gave you. Okay? A lot of other teachers have stuff out there. Some of it you probably need. Some of it, is just, just to fill space, I guess, or doing stuff that is expected of them. I'm trying to give you all the life-changing materials you need to become him. All right? And you've got to understand that in all those life-changing materials, that these are all things that you need to understand to walk this out. Sometimes it's the information on what to do. Sometimes it's the information on understanding what a word really means. Like we did that whole teaching on evil. Right now we just started an incredibly new teaching on sin. Not exactly what you thought it was. Okay? Well, it was, but it wasn't. Covenant. Salvation. Grace. I mean, name the concept. That's the salvation one, the Are You Saved one. Understanding overcoming, endurance, fear, light. I mean, just name it. We've covered it. As a matter of fact, it's going to get to a point at some point here where I'm like, I've covered everything. But then I keep finding new stuff, so it's okay. What was that? It's eternal. That's true. Okay? So, just wanted to throw that out there so you understand, and I really want to encourage you to go back and listen to some of the stuff, and you're thinking, but I got so much still to do now. Take it in whatever order you take it. And I'm just saying is, if you've been with me for a few years, just throw in there into the mix something that's way back, especially something that you already heard from a long time ago, and just play it again and see, oh. Don't just think, well, yeah, I already heard that. Each time, you can listen to it 5 times in a row, you'll get something different. Okay, literally 5 times in a row, without interruption, you'll keep catching something. Because it's his word, and his word is limitless in what you can get from it. Not my talent. That's why you can pick up the scriptures, read the same verses over and over, and keep getting other stuff out of it. Because it's his word. The teachings are his word. At least that's how I feel about it. I know some of you do as well. All right, that's going to wrap it up. Good job. All right, Father, we come before you, and Father, we're on this Rosh Chodesh, very, very humbled and excited to be approaching the Passover time, and we're going to ask that you would be with us, guiding and leading us and strengthening us as we examine ourselves and start to look for the leaven to get out of our lives. And as we understand that your desire is that we become strong. Strong in you. Not strong in ourselves, but strong in you. That we take and purge out all the weaknesses, all those emotional challenges that provide those traps and pits that we fall in so that we can walk straight. All those emotions that pull us left and right of the path that's straight. That, Father, you help us to grow into that full maturity where we are not ruled by our emotions, but yet we still have them in abundance. So, Father, we want to thank you and praise you on this new moon for giving us another season to continue in the journey as we strive to become like your Son, Yeshua. And it's in his name that we ask all things, in the name above all names, Yeshua our Messiah. Amen. 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 Okay, I'm going to come over here. Anybody wants to be on camera, we're going to wave goodbye from over on this side. Yeah, you can come over here, Louis. It's fine. Okay, there you go. I like this Rosh Chodesh thing. The children are coming, but they're not tackling me. That's good. Hi, Kaya. And this is Adar, and it is the month of Adar. All right. We got everybody on this side now? Awesome. Okay, look at the camera. Okay, we're going to wish everybody, we're going to wish everybody, well, Rosh Chodesh. Let's say Rosh Chodesh Sameach. We're going to say Shavua Tov, have a good week. And we're going to tell everybody that we love them. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.